Can you imagine at least 2/3 of youth out there are unemployed, facing this despair, this dejection, this desolation, and they're prey to depression. So you can use all the adjectives with D in it to connote depression, which impacts on your physical well-being as well as your mental, your thought processes, your behavior, and as a result impacts in so many other spheres of life.
But there's more cases that are being reported, there's more cases that are coming up. I'd like to believe that maybe it's because people are becoming more self-aware of what is going on with them, and I think with social media as well, there's a lot of comparisons. I can imagine earlier years, a lot of people will only become aware of their own circumstances when they get to varsity level, because there's a difference. You get to varsity and there's people that come from diverse backgrounds, and then you start comparing yourself against those people and you start seeing how lacking you are. Whereas now with social media, people are more aware of their circumstances. If there's physical abuse at home, if there's emotional abuse at home, they're more aware of what could be different because of exposure to social media, to friends, to TV. So I think a lot more people are more aware, and it's easy for them to use the words that we're using, like saying, I am depressed.
Rhodes University student Kensani Maseko's funeral service is underway in Johannesburg. The 23-year-old final year BA student took her life at her family home in Alberton, east of Johannesburg, 5 days ago. She had suffered depression after she was raped, allegedly by a boyfriend who was also a Rhodes student.
When you wake up in the morning and feel, well, should I be up today? You're not bouncing out of bed, besides the cold that you confront in winter, that's a warning sign, together with other kinds of symptoms which need to cluster together. For instance, if you eat too much, if you eat too little, if you sleep too much, if you sleep too little, and that sense of foreboding, of gloom, despondency, and an overwhelming feeling of lack of self-worth. The emptiness that one feels, while around they may, in the newsroom, in whatever space one's in the homes now, you're alone, feeling that weight, but you're unable to share it. And that's the tragedy in the 21st century, that we don't feel free to say, you know what, I'm feeling really down, and it's weighing down on me. And I think I need some help, or I need some space to work through this, because help is available all around us.
It's a lot of factors that, triggers what a student might call depression. Some students come to us saying they are depressed, but then when you do an evaluation or assess them, you see that they're not necessarily depressed. They are overwhelmed and they are stressed. They just don't know what to do, with their emotions. So mostly, we also learned that depression is a term that, students use loosely. When they're feeling sad, they come to us saying, I'm depressed, or walking to their friends and telling them that they're depressed.
With treatment, there's two-pronged approach to treatment. For people who are clinically depressed, where you find that it doesn't matter where they are, their moods are always low. For those people that can't even put up a show, often with people that are difficult to diagnose, it's because they can put up a show. When they leave the house, they're well dressed and they're in a happy mood because they feel like they need to do that. But for people who can't even put up the show, those are the ones that we typically say they're clinically depressed. And it's difficult then to just do talk therapy with them to get them out of that. Often they will need medication. Older people, mature people, you hear they say, I drink. when I need to go to sleep, I need to have a glass of wine in order to sleep. Or someone will say, I sleep a lot. Often I listen to their coping mechanisms and what they do when they're overwhelmed.
Okay, so I grew up as a not so happy child because I also have issues with my father. My father left me when I was 2 years, 3 months. So that left me being not okay. Like it's a wound that never heals. So in 2016 when these guys came and wanted to sponsor us, and then in return they wanted to sleep with me, it took me back to what my father did to me. Okay, my father didn't want to sleep with me, but my father left me at the age of 2 years, 3 months. So to me it was like, so men are the same. Men are trash. So okay, then from that point in 2016 I suffered depression, and then because I was pregnant by then, it couldn't be treated. I was now shaking all the time. I didn't have interest in self-image. I was not eating, and I was losing a lot of weight, and I was crying most of the time. That is when my mother said, you know what, my child is depressed.
They feel like, what is the point to life? And often with that is you'd find it in children who've lost significant others in their lives, where they feel like, if I can lose somebody like that, easily like that, what's the point to life? What's the point to all of this? And you'd find a lot of people that are depressed often ask that question. Actually, why are we here? What's the point to life? If someone so educated, so someone who's achieved so much in life, if that person can take their own life, who am I not to? And often you find people battling with those questions to say, I am so insignificant, I am not good enough, I am just a number. And they're more likely to commit suicide if there was also depression in.
So I think sometimes as black people, as black Africans, we're so quick to just think that, you know, these things are shameful, or to blame it on demons, or, you know, like, no, we'll pray for you. And it's not going to help. That's not how you get rid of depression. I really think that we kind of need to realize that, especially in this country where there's like such high rates of unemployment and stuff like that, people really are falling into that trap of being depressed. And then you go home and your parents don't take you seriously. It's pretty sad.
There's no motivation. They don't look forward to doing things that they used to enjoy. But on the other extreme, those that are difficult to pick up are those that feel the need to put up a strong face for others so that they're not seen to be depressed. Because often depression is not seen as something that we should be suffering from as a society. It's taboo, and often it's difficult to get to understand or get a clear assessment of what the individual is is experiencing, because they give you what they feel you should hear. So it's not an easy diagnosis. But often what I look at is how are they coping generally, and what are some of the things that they do when they're overwhelmed.
I think as someone who obviously came out of high school not too long ago, I think a lot of people are depressed. A lot of people's parents aren't taking them seriously. And as someone who went to a high school that had a mix of races and cultures and stuff like that, you do find that black people are more nonchalant when it comes to depression. Like a few weeks back, I was talking to my mom about how I sometimes struggle with anxiety. And it opened up this conversation about how she just thought depression was just the kind of thing that you cure by saying, stop being sad. So I actually had to sit with her and explain, no, depression is not just I'm feeling sad. And anxiety is not just, oh, I'm feeling anxious. It's actually a mental disease that needs, proper care and attention.
Well, I believe this is actually an issue of your background. So since charity begins at home, if you're well at home, if you're well taught, if you're well cared for, depression won't be such an issue for you. So I think the parents have a greater task to play in terms of the well-being of the child. So yeah, family, the home, the environment you stay in is actually a major factor when it comes to issues of depression.
The biggest role that we can do is educate each other. My role as a psychologist, thinking about how can I psycho-educate people about different types of mental illnesses and what is there out there for them. So I know in most African cultures, men usually do not want to talk about the issues. They do not want to address that issues. But the main thing that can be done is to normalize conversations around mental illnesses, is to make people aware that just like physical health is important, your mental health is also important. And yeah, just having more conversations around those and normalizing those conversations, I think that's where we can start. And as professionals, psycho-educating people. And what we do here at PsychEd is mostly we offer psychological services to our students, but we also have external clients that we see for therapy. We also offer psycho-educational assessments that is mostly to our external clients, and we also have career assessments and career counseling, which is for everybody, both students in the institution and outside the institution. There is a correlation between people, our suicidal, your high-risk suicidal client, and somebody who is depressed, and mostly because one of the major symptoms of depression is that suicidal ideation, where people feeling, because people generally in a low mood, they don't know what to do with themselves, they don't see the reason for living, and that is when those thoughts come along. There is more support for them, regardless of what they think. For UJ students, there is us, there's PsychEd. For somebody who's out there, there is Lifeline, there are other organizations, and that, I know this sounds cliche, but it does get better, There is a way out of the situation. Just try to think of who you can support, who can support you. If you can't think of anyone, go to go to SADC, call Lifeline, come to PsychEd if you're a UG student. But there is support, there is help for you. There are people who are ready to help you and manage what you're going through right now and getting out of it.
First and foremost, depression is real, and then people must take note of that. But some people can hide it. They won't show signs of a depression. And then some do show signs and then try to find help. Like for instance, here at UJ we have PsychEd and VETS, they have their psychological offices. But some people do go there and they don't get the necessary help, because in most cases the psychologists just recommend antidepressants, which are not helpful for students alike. So I think as community, as South Africa as a whole, we must come with a solution not involving Western medication too much. Just a dialogue where we can talk and see how we can fix this thing of depression, because it's really, really killing us.
I mean, depression is like a real thing, but like at the same time, as like society in Africa, we don't really like support other people who have depression. It's kind of like, okay, now just get professional help, or like people just ignore it. But like I feel like to properly deal with it, you have to have support at home, support from your friends, like proper support, like not just go see a guy, go get antidepressants and stuff. Like it should be like a conversation we have like every day, and yeah.
Yeah, well, mostly with careers and all, and the courses, the courses that they're studying. So the workload mostly affects their emotional well-being if they don't know how to manage that. So that is when they come to our doors, mostly because they're feeling stressed and overwhelmed because of their workload. So even in terms of their career paths and all, so you find a student who doesn't know that, who isn't sure that the course that they're studying is what they really want to study, and that is what leads to most of them even being stressed about that, because firstly they're studying a course that they don't like, and then secondly it's giving them difficulties just understanding the concepts or around the course materials and all. So that is when they come to us.
I think the important thing about depression is that it is probably the most rising condition that we confront, and it's been rising for the last few decades. The World Health Organization has flagged it as a rising illness, but we tend to always look at these only in the physical symptoms. So when it impacts on your mood, your thought, and as a result, your other performances in whatever space, we don't take serious note of that. We usually look at maybe cardiology, maybe cancer, and the other physical things that impact on us, but we ignore depression.
It's with a very heavy heart that I bid farewell to Bongani Mayusi into the afterlife that will but bring him eternal peace.
When I met him just over 2 years ago, I was at an event of the Black Management Forum, and I was the first to go onto the dance floor. And a few minutes later, I was joined by Professor Bongani, and we started a conversation dancing together. And he said, look, he would like to work with the city of Cape Town, especially in our poorer communities.
Bongani displayed every quality I can imagine that bring to life the African concept of Ubuntu. I am because we are. I am because you are. He was a man who had wonderful gifts of grace, imagination, inquisitiveness, and vision. Through all of these, he was able, nevertheless, to point a way to the future, both in the concern for the social concern of humankind on the one hand, and its medical needs on the other.
When a person passes away in the manner that my brother did, all those in his life, in his close circle, his colleagues and family, individually ask themselves the questions, what did I miss? What could I have done to prevent this from happening? My sister and my 2 sisters-in-law spent a sleepless night on Tuesday commiserating over the death of our brother. Our interactions were peppered with statements from us like, I failed him, I didn't know, I knew he was depressed, but I didn't know the full extent, I didn't know the reasons why. But I did this intervention, I thought it had helped, but it hadn't. We conceded that we just did not do enough.